offer to speak about it on Shabbos for him to do it afterwards. So now both cases. Amir Lamir is separate sugya. So those are the 2 points. So according to Rashi, Lamaisa, there's the concept of shlichus, which means that the malach is being done on your behalf on Shabbos. It relates to you. It's as if somehow you're doing it, and therefore that alone, that you're having malacha done on your behalf on Shabbos, that's also okay. Now you could ask a kasha if there's such a concept of shlichus, maybe it's an issa deraisa, and we know Amir Lakim is only issa derabanan. So on that, this is just a concept. The Achrayim say, I'm sorry for the Beis Meir says a concept that Shabbos, it wouldn't be asa deraisa, because Shabbos is the side of Shabbos is you have to rest on Shabbos. You have to be shoyves. You have to disengage from your malacha. So if somebody else is doing it on your behalf, even through shlichus, it's not considered a chilul of Shabbos directly, because I'm relaxed. I'm enjoying the chalent. I'm fine. The problem is that in Lumdis, there's a malacha which is being nisyaches to me. So he says that's not a chilul of Shabbos. Chilul of Shabbos is dafka when you're actively involved. So it couldn't be an issa deraisa of shlichus. It's only an issa derabanan of shlichus because you're ma'isa, you're resting. So you're being mekayim Shabbos. But l'maisa, since a guy is doing a malacha which is relating to you, so therefore Chazal asked that. Okay? The makor for this is the whole concept, the famous Nimuk Yosef asks a kasha, that how come you're allowed to light a fire Erev Shabbos and it goes through Shabbos? There's a concept of Isha Mishum Chitzav that anything that the fire does is considered I'm doing it. If you light a fire and Toich Koyach Rishon, it kills someone, you're chayiv. So how come? Why? Because it's still like you're doing it. So why are you allowed to light a fire right before Shabbos and it goes into Shabbos? You're still doing it. So he says you're doing it, but you're also resting. So it's enough to be chayiv skila if you chayiv chenek if you kill the person, but it's not chayiv on Shabbos. Shabbos you're ma'aseh, you're resting. Okay. So this is the Yisod Amir Lach. Okay. Now I basically just summarized the entire. I brought here a stipler, Simon and Hay. Pretty much, I think we. I don't know if we did justice, but we first summarized the stipler just now. Okay, so I want to move through this because I think that was really just introductory, and I made a cheshbon between now and after Sukkot. Maybe we have like 3 shurim, like not too much time. So I wanted to get to the Yisodis. Okay, so let's talk about a typical case. Now that we have the, I can use this to record. Is that not recording? I don't know if it's recording there. So the shaila is like this. Now to discuss is let's just give an example. A simple example. You have a store. You own a retail store, and it's a retail store, and it's closed on Shabbos. Avada, store's closed. Comes Yom Tif, yeah, it's in a mall, this, that. So you have to keep it open. So you have to hire people to run the store for you, right? So the question obviously is, you're hiring the people, they're working for you on Shabbos. How do you keep the store open on Shabbos? Okay. So before we get to that, shaila, we have to go back and say, what are the problems potentially with having that arrangement? So there's one problem which we're not going to talk about. There's the problem of schar Shabbos. You're making money on Shabbos. So schar Shabbos, you're not allowed to make money on Shabbos, even passively. You're not allowed to make money on Shabbos and Yom Tif. And Mamela, since you're not allowed to make money on Shabbos and Yom Tif, so you would have to figure out how to make sure that, if you're keeping the store open, you're probably making money. How do you calculate the schar Shabbos? By the way, it's unbelievable. Rabbi David Feinstein wrote a shaila to Rav Moshe that if you have a bank account that's collecting interest, It's not particularly, I mean, maybe it just became Nagel like 2 months ago, Shaila. So if you have a bank account that's collecting interest, okay, so he says you should have to go every month, calculate how many Shabbos there were, and subtract those Shabbos from the interest, and get rid of that money. And how would you get rid of the money? You can't write a check to your local tzedakah, because then you're getting Tevas Hana. So you would have to give cash in the pushka. No one can know that you gave the money. And you get no hana from the money whatsoever. You could throw it to the yam. The Gemara says, bizarre yam, but otherwise you could put it in the pushka also. And so that was a shayla he asked Ramosha. So as Ramosha told him that the way interest accrues in a bank is on a 24-hour period. It's not on a sundown to sundown period, right? So it goes by the English calendar. So it's from 12:01 midnight till 11:59, right? So therefore, every day is made up, the interest that you accrued on Friday is partially from Friday, and the interest you accrued on Saturday, Shabbos, is partially Motzei Shabbos. So Mele, it's always including in it, is Bahavla, it's always including in it partially the Choil and partially the Shabbos. So what about 2-day Yom Tov? So that overlaps. He said 2-day Yom Tov is a Safek Didina. We don't know which one is which. But if one of the days is Shabbos, so you don't have a Safek anymore. So Taka, one of the days is Aser. So this year, Rosh Hashanah, it's Shabbos Sunday, right? Shabbos Sunday. So Mistama, the Shabbos, the interest you get from your bank on Shabbos, I don't have that problem. I don't know if anyone else has that problem. But the interest, the interest you have from Shabbos could be Zasser. Every Rosh Hashanah, I'm not sure. So I specifically didn't say that. I have to look in the tshuva what he uses Yom HaRechta for. But when the first day is Shabbos and there's no Sveika Dedina on that, so there's no Mamanavshach, so therefore all these Yom Tovim, it could be that it's Taka Shaila to look into. An interesting Shaila. Okay, but that's one Shaila Skar Shabbos. We're not going to address that directly.
So
okay?
Taka, you should give an extra $1 or $2 or $3, whatever, to the pushka.
Right. No. That's this year when the Yom Tovim and Shabbos, you don't have the Mamanavshach. So you have one period of time that's pure Shabbos and Yom Tov that you're gaining interest on that day in the bank or wherever it is. There's a Schar Shabbos issue. Now, besides for that, we're discussing now is the employees. What about the employees working for you? Okay? So, what the Gemara here talks about, in Avodah Zarah Chaval from Beis, which is the next place after the Stipler, the Gemara discusses a case that two scenarios. A scenario of a merchatz, keeping a merchatz open on Shabbos, and there's another scenario of a sadeh. Now, the Gemara is talking about, are you allowed to rent a sadeh out to a guy? And the Gemara discusses, why would it be asur or mutter to rent out the sadeh to the guy? What's the problem with renting out a sadeh? It's his, it's not mine. People will think it's still your sadeh, it's still yours, and people will think that you hired the person. Why? Why will people think that you hired him to run your merchatz? To run your merchatz. Merchatz is like a business that you pay every time you come in. So it's constantly making, the way it's used is you're constantly making money, right? It's like, something that the entry fee, a movie theater is open, and every time someone comes in, they're paying money. So this merchatz was a freedman's merchatz. Now he happens to be, this year he's leasing it out to someone else, but the guy still wants the name brand, so he keeps it up as freedman's merchatz, and it's being run by a guy. And he rented it out. All the money he says there's no Schar Shabbos, but it's still Marasayin, that it looks like you hired the guy. It looks like you hired the guy to run your business for you. So the Gemara says it's Asr. Because it looks like you hired him. So then the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, you shouldn't be allowed to hire someone to run your field for you. Not for you. I'm saying you shouldn't be allowed to rent out your field to a guy, because it will look like you hired him. So the Gemara says the Yisod here. The Gemara says here, let's read this inside. This is the background. Let's read it inside to get more clarity. It's on Chaval from Beis. It's after this, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. It says, Tanya, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Lo yiskar adam merchatzai lo ovid kachavim. You shouldn't rent out a merchatz to a guy. Mipnei shenikra al shemayim. Because it's still considered freedman's merchatz. V'ovid kachavim zeh, and the guy is oiseh b'malach b'Shabbos v'yamim tovim. And the guy is doing malach on Shabbos and Yom Tov, and it will look like you hired him. Okay? So then the Gemara has a whole thing about a chol moed and a kusi. It's not going to get right now that part of the Gemara. Fine. If you go down a few lines, the Gemara says the aval sadeyu lo'ivik kachavim mai. What about renting out a field to a guy? Shari, it's mutter. My time, or why? Don't you have the same concern that people will think it's your field still and you hired him? The Gemara says no. Arisa arisuse ka'avid. He's an aris. The way fields work is, in those days, the balabayas didn't have time to sit there managing the field and hiring workers. Okay, you go ahead and plow. You go ahead and take the seeds. You go ahead and do... He didn't have time for that. He's a balabayas. He owns the fields. If he owns the fields, he's probably a wealthy man. He doesn't have time to deal with the workers. The way he did it was he hired someone as a sharecropper. So the sharecropper is an aris, and he's essentially, let's call it in our terms, he's being paid on commission. He gets paid from what he produces. Right? So he's paid on commission, and therefore he's working the field. When an aris works the field, he's not working as a shliach of the balabayas. He's working entirely for himself. He took over the field, he's running the field, he's running the operation, he has people he hired or he didn't hire, however he wants to do it, and he is going to walk away with commission with a percentage of the produce of the field. So the Gemara says that's completely mutter. The Gemara adds, not only is it mutter, since that's the normal derech, that you hire people in your field, so if you rent it out to the guy, people won't think you hired the guy to work for you. People will think that he's your aris. And it's okay if people think he's your aris. There's no maris ayin on that. Okay? I'm going to go over this again. I'm just speaking out the Gemara. So the Gemara says, Merchatz nami amri arisa risuse ka'avid. In the Merchatz, people will think the same thing. So the Gemara says, arisa the Merchatz will have the issue. No one does that. In a merchatz, you're the man. The owner of the merchatz actually does just hire, because it's a much more simple job. So why would you give it away to someone? Normally in a merchatz, Friedman's merchatz, I'm running it. I hire a guy by the hour. I pay him to run the field, to run the merchatz, and that's how it works. So therefore, that's what it's going to look like, since that's the derech. So what comes out from this Gemara is a few things.
Why would an aris be mutter by so that you're still making Shabbos?
So it's not considered Shabbos because it's over such a long period of time. You don't make the money till all the way at the end of the season. So the fact that he planted today doesn't produce money for me. So there's no direct correlation between the malach of Shabbos and the money that comes in. By a merchatz, it could be you could have had that shaila, because merchatz is also anyway. But merchatz taka is also this guy every day he's paying, so you could be calculate that. But there's no calculation of Schar Shabbos on a field. So the okay, so let's take out what the yisodos of this Gemara are. The yisodos of this Gemara, there's two major yisodos in this Gemara, and these are going to really basically be the fundamentals of everything else that we're going to learn. Okay? And then after those two yisodos, it splits up a little bit in this long taisvus here between Rabbeinu Tam and the Ri. Okay? The one yisod in the Gemara is, number one, is that in the halacha of Amir La'akum, if you have an aris, there's no Amir, he's allowed to work on your field, and you're benefiting, like you said, you are benefiting from the fact that he's working, right? Maybe it's not Schar Shabbos, but he's working for you to some degree, right? You made the arrangement with him, it's your field, but since he's an aris, it's mutter. Aris means he's getting a share of what he produces, which would seem to say, if you have a commission, a person working on commission, it's mutter. Because since, well, what's the logic? I thought he was your shliach. So some of the logic is that he's not working for you. He's working for himself. He has his own motivation to work, right? He's not working just for you. So if you can create that arrangement with someone that he has his own motivation to work, then it's going to be mutter. Okay? Me'ikar adin. We're talking about me'ikar adin, it's going to be mutter. Now, that's step number one. Step number two is that the Gemara here taught us that there's a maris ayin problem in Amir La'akum. If you have something which is no shaykhis to Amir La'akum, but as a matter of fact, you rented out the whole merchatz to him. The guy has nothing to do with you. The guy pays you his rent every month, whether it stays open, whether it's closed, whether anything. So you have nothing to do with the operations of this merchatz. He pays you once a month the rent. Still, there's a maris ayin issue. It's just chiddush. You could have said maris ayin. Maybe maris ayin is also on a deraisa, or maris ayin is also here. It's a maris ayin that maybe It's Amir Lakum, which is Derabanan. But there's a Maris Ayin issue. So if you have an arrangement.
Within a kimta that it has your name on it. Mashay if it doesn't have your name.
Okay, fine. But I'm saying there is a Maris Ayin aspect that this Maris Machadish you have to deal with, that if it looks like you hired him, so that becomes Aser now. Okay? So now we're taking the Amir Lakum, we're saying like this. You hire a guy to work for you, let's call that an employee that's paid by the hour. He's paid and you pay him to work for you, that's Aser. If you don't pay him to work for you, but it looks like you're paying him to work for you, it's also Aser. However, if he's working for himself, and I'll add, and it looks like he's working for himself, because that's the derech of how the field works, that's the nature of this business, then it's mutter. Okay? Okay, so I'm throwing in a lot of information over here, but this is the Yesod over here that comes out of this Gemara. So let's speak out to illustrate. I'll use it as an illustration, but I'm also, as we say, we'll chazer over the Yesod. But we'll speak out the machlekes between Rabbeinu Tam and the Ri. Okay? The Rabbeinu Tam and the Ri wanted to know, which is mamish obviously ma'asim b'chol yoim, literally ma'asim b'chol yoim, is can you hire a kabbalan? There's a third type of worker. And before I start the tesis, let's start a third type of worker. So we have an aris. An aris is a guy gets paid by commission. He's a commission paid guy. He gets paid from the produce, whatever he produces. Then you have a guy that you pay by the hour. What about a guy that you pay by the job? A kabbalan. What's a kabbalan? A kabbalan is somebody that you call him up. You say, I need some shelves in this room, or better yet, I need you to deliver me a bookcase. Okay, and you call him up, and he's gonna bring you the bookcase when it's ready. But he's working for you. He's working for you because he doesn't have bookcases in his warehouse. He's working for you, but he's a kabbalan, so he took upon himself the job. He's not working by being paid by the hour. He's working and he has a job to complete, and when he completes the job, he gets paid for the job. The halacha is that that's also mutter if he works on Shabbos, even if it's for you, because it's not considered, again, it's a similar lumdus to an aris in the sense it's considered he's working for himself, not for you. You never told him to do it on Shabbos, number one. Number two is, no one knows what he's doing and who he's doing it for. So the fact that he's doing the job and he's in mind that he's doing it for you is mutter. So if you have if the Gemara talks about, the place can talk about, you have to bring something for repairs, an appliance, and you drop it off in the person's store. So the appliance repair guy, and he fixes it in his store. It's mutter because he's a kabbalan. He's going to get paid by the hour. If you have
the work,
you're paid for the job. I'm sorry, thank you. Same thing with the car, technically. You dropped off your car by the mechanic, and you pick it up after Shabbos. Now, there's a lot of details in this. I'm not getting all the details. I'll say one thing now, provided that you're not asking him explicitly to do it on Shabbos. As long as you're not asking him explicitly to do it on Shabbos. Okay? So a kabbalan is mutter. Now, let's take, based on all this, are you allowed to have somebody build you a house on Shabbos? Do work on your house on Shabbos. You're in the middle of construction, and you have a house on the corner right here, and you have to put on a new roof. So, are you allowed to have the roofer come on Shabbos and do the roof? Well?
it's more a sign.
Okay, so let's talk one step at a time. Is it aser me'ikar adin? Meaning, is there a real amir la'akam on that? Not really, because he's a kabbalan, right?
Yeah.
He's a kabbalan. He's really getting paid by the job. So there's no real amir la'akam on that, technically, as long as you didn't tell him, I need it Sunday for my party that I'm running. I have a bar mitzvah, Shabbos on Sunday, I need the roof to be done, there's a major leak, Thursday it's supposed to rain. As long as you didn't tell him, technically it's mutter. But, and guess what? That's what Rabbeinu Tam held. Rabbeinu Tam says in the Tosfos that Pasak Rabbeinu Tam, if you look at the first line of the Tosfos, Halacha ke Reb Shimon ben Gamliel da'amar, Arisa Arisuse Kavid. As long as the guy has his own motivation, it's mutter. Just like an aris. And because of that, Hitter li Yisrael, he was matter for a guy, Shenasan Beisai, Lasais bekablonos livnois by afil b'Shabbos. So Rabbeinu Tam was matter that. Okay? So Rabbeinu Tam was matter a roofer to come to your house on Shabbos, provided you didn't tell him explicitly to come on Shabbos to do it. You're in the middle of a project, the guy tells you, look, my workers are available Saturday, I'm coming. Do what you gotta do. No? Fine. The re, I'm not gonna go through the whole tesis, it's very hard tesis here, but it's underlined here. The re, I mean Yitzchak Pirish. The re says, no, it's usher. Why? Because it says in our Gemara in Avodah Zarah that if something looks like a schir yoim, if it looks like you hired the guy, there's an issur of marasayin, and therefore any time that you have work being done in your house where you live, or a property you own that's in a Jewish community, and people pass by on Shabbos and all that, it's usher it's usher al marasayin. It's going to look like you hired the guy. Okay? It's going to look like he's not a kabbalah. It's going to look like he's a schir yoim. It looks like you hired him for by the hour. And therefore, since it looks like you're paying him, and maybe you're the general contractor, and you're just paying the guy, right? You picked up a worker, and you're just paying him. So therefore, it looks like a mir la'akam, and that's a problem. Okay? Now, at the very bottom, I underlined the one line in Tosfos. V'Rabbeinu Tam aval pi shehekel bekablonos hechmer al atzmai ukeshabana beitz lo hiniach v'kachavim livnos b'Shabbos. So you want to know? Okay, it's machlokes Rabbeinu Tam the Ri. The Rabbeinu Tam was chayzer basically. I don't think he didn't retract his position in lumdus. Maybe he holds like that, but Rabbeinu Tam himself, practically speaking, he built a house and he told the workers not to come on Shabbos. So Tosfos brings that down, meaning, why is Tosfos bringing this down? It's not a biography over here. He's bringing this down to say that even Rabbeinu Tam didn't paskin halacha l'maisa like his shita. So it's not a reliable shita for us to go with. So you got to go with the Ri, and the Ri says if it's in a public place, it looks like you hired him. And therefore, the halacha is anything in your property, in your home, anything has to do with a plumber, anything to do with the house, that's part of your home, inside the pool, AC, roof, anything that has to do with your property, but derech klal is going to be marasayin of a schir yoim, and it's going to be a problem. Okay? So that's the halacha l'maisa in building a house. Now, you could ask a kasha, which
everybody can do it.
I shouldn't say, Ephraim is about to ask this kasha, that Bir Halacha asks this kasha. The effect of Bir Halacha kasha, one second. We established that really the kabbalah is mutter me'ikar adin. Me'ikar adin is mutter. It's not really aser because he's doing it for himself. It's only maris ayin that it looks like you hired him. Nowadays, no one hires people to do work like that by the hour. I mean, unless you yourself are a contractor. A normal person, the way houses are built and the way plumbing jobs are done and the way AC jobs are done and the way everything is done nowadays is you hire a kabbalah. That, for character, is no marasayin. It doesn't look like a schir yoim. It looks very much like a kabbalah. The guy has a big sign in front of your house, A, B, and C construction, and everyone knows that that's what's going on. Well, what's the marasayin over here? That's the Bir Halacha's kasha. So there's two tirusim to this kasha. So far, I mean, we're packing it in, but everyone's following for the most part? Okay. So, again, the kasha is, if the whole issur to have workers work on your house on Shabbos is marasayin, that it looks like you hired him. It doesn't look like a kabbalah in a society where everybody does kabbalah, so what's the marasayin? So there's two tirusim to this kasha. One is Ramosha, is a tshuva, and one is maybe a different lumdus. One answer is Ramosha says that since Shabbos is so he basically says it's talking not usher but zilzul the Shabbos, it's a total zilzul on Shabbos, and if we're going to allow that, then even the people that keep Shabbos, how many Yidden are there that keep Shabbos? What percentage of Yidden keep Shabbos? And what percentage of Yidden keep Shabbos properly? And if those people are going to start finding this a term, no one's going to keep Shabbos anymore. It's going to be a zilzul of Shabbos.
Is it a Rabbanan?
It's less than a Rabbanan. It's saying it's like a zilzul of Shabbos. It's like you can't do that. We can't allow this. You're going to say that in America, that's the society, but in America is exactly where you have to mechazek Shabbos. So that's what he writes. I don't know what date he wrote that in, but I can't imagine it's any different today. He wrote that in Tafshin Chav Ches. What was that? 55 years ago. That's what he wrote. Okay? Yesh lahakra b'midinaseinu sheba'avoneseinu arabim mezalzelim b'yisrei Shabbos, and therefore. But there's another lumdus. Okay? I'm going to throw this out there. It's geshmak a lumdus, but you have to. It's a nuance over here. Okay? He says like this, I think it's in Moshe or it's in Iran and others. There's two real ways to understand Maris Ayin. One way of understanding Maris Ayin is that people will think you're doing X, people will think you're doing Y. Right? That's the pashtus. Really, I'm doing X, but it's so similar to Y that people may think, oh, this guy's doing Y, he's doing something else. And that's, oh wow, either that's going to cause people to think that that's mutter, or it's just a bizayon that this guy's Machal Shabbos. So you hired a Kabbalan, it looks like he's hiring a Schiriyim. Wow, this guy's Machal Shabbos for Hesed, it's terrible. So that's one way to understand Maris Ayin, which if that's the way you understand it, in this case it shouldn't be Aser, because it doesn't look like he's hiring. But he said there's another way to understand Maris Ayin. Maris Ayin is that when you hire a Kabbalan, when you're doing X, everyone knows you're doing X. They don't think you're doing Y. But they don't see the difference between X and Y. And oh, if this guy's allowed to do X, I'm probably allowed to do Y. Because they're so similar that if he's allowed to do X, then I'm probably allowed to do Y. And that's the Maris Ayin. People are not making a mistake in thinking you're doing something other than what you're doing. It's just that they know exactly what you're doing, but they're not such big lamdanim. They don't know these nuances, achiluk, and therefore, if this guy's allowed to do that, then if he's allowed to, let's just say, if he's allowed to go into this, no one's going to think, let's say, he's going to the classical, going to a restaurant to eat fruit, right? So maybe no one thinks it's easy to eat treif. But once he's going to the restaurant, so I'm also going to go into the restaurant, and once he's going to buy that, there's probably no difference. I'm allowed to get a set. So he says, Ramosha, if you go like that, then it's going to be Aser, because people know, you're right, that you did a Kabbalan. But if he's allowed to hire a ABC company to do construction on his house on Shabbos, I could probably hire a worker to work for me on Shabbos. What's the difference? Goyim are working. So it's not that people think he's hiring a Schir Yoim. It's that people think that if you could do a Kabbalan, you could also do a Schir Yoim. What's the difference? And therefore, that's the Maris Ayin. So it's a whole different Maris Ayin, right? So that's where Moshe says that it could be that if you go like that, then even in a society that everyone does Schir Yoim, it's still Aser. Because the bottom line is that you're opening up the door for people to start hiring workers even as a Schir Yoim. Okay? So
it's not a Danakav Zechut issue, it's more about like creating their own.
Correct. It's not correct. Exactly. Which answers a big question. Exactly the question. It's a big question on Maris Ayin, which is what happened to Dan L'Kav Schus. Why are we so worried about Maris Ayin if everyone has to, when they see me, has to be Dan L'Kav Schus? The Mefarshim asked this kasha. Right? So the answer is they're going to Dan L'Kav Schus. They're just going to make their own halachic mistakes. Right? So therefore we don't want, it's too close to each other, we don't want people to, or maybe there's two demon in Maris Ayin, but we don't want people to make that type of error.
Why isn't the Maris Ayin just pushing that maybe he told him he has to work on Shabbos? Even if he's a Kabbalah, he told him that I need this done.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't that also part of the Maris Ayin?
So I hear what you're saying. It's a good question. The only thing I could say is that there's no source for that in the Gemara. The Gemara is mechadish that you can't rent out a merchatz because it looks like aris, right? So the Gemara already discusses that type of Maris Ayin, but to go extend it to something else, maybe mechatesi, that's such a.
For that you have to be doing
right. For that you have to be doing kafschos, exactly. So Okay, so now let's so let's just chaz over a little bit the fundamentals that we talked about and get to a few cases of halacha l'maisa, and then see where that leaves us. So what we discussed was that according to the Rambam, Amir La'akum is just a gzeira that we don't want people to come to do malacha themselves. According to Rashi, there's 2 points in Marasayin in Amir La'akum. One is the actual speaking about it on Shabbos, but what's more negea is arranging it before Shabbos, and that's also at shlichus. Shlichus means he's doing it on your behalf. We discussed why is that not an Issa Deraisa, it's only an Issa Derabana, because in reality you're resting, but the bottom line is this guy is working for you on Shabbos on your behalf. And therefore you cannot have workers work on your behalf on Shabbos. Then we spoke out that there are really 3 types of employment arrangements. One is a schir yoim, a guy that's hired by the hour to work for you, and that's a milakim, he's your shliach, like Rashi says. That's aser. Then there's what the Gemara calls an aris, which is he gets paid commission, he gets paid from what he produces, which is technically mutter. Then the Rishonim bring, there's a kablon, which gets paid by the job, which is also mutter, because he's not working for you in the sense he's working for himself, because he has a job to do and he gets paid by completing the job. We spoke out that in case number 2 and 3, which is either the kablon or the aris, which are both mutter technically, if it's in a place where it appears to be a schir yoim, or it's too close to schir yoim, there would be a marasayin issue, according to the Ri and the Gemara, so it would be a marasayin issue, and therefore you cannot have an aris work for you in a place that it looks like he's a schir yoim, and you cannot have a kablon work for you in a place that it looks like he's a schir yoim. And we discussed that therefore it would be also to have, let's say, any construction being done where you live or in a property you own, I guess that people know you own, in a Jewish community. I say it that way because let's say you don't live in a Jewish community. There's a guy here, he has, someone told me this, right? So he has this, he has a house on a private island or something like that. There's no Jewish community, there's only a Jew there. So, is it mutter to have a kabbal and come on Shabbos? So if there's nobody there, it's mutter. There's no other yid in there. But if he's there,
everyone's gonna move there.
Yeah, but it's out of the tchum. You can't take a boat on Shabbos to get there. So, but if he's there, he's not allowed. So Mishnah Berurah says because he may have guests. So the Marasayin Alts his own guests, or there's Marasayin Alts his own kids. So there, your kids don't know your arrangement with your AC guy. So therefore, that's why I said it that way. I said, either your house where you live or a house that you own, which is inside a Jewish community. Okay, so that would be usher because of maris ayin, that it looks like a yeah, it doesn't look like that. So therefore, any arrangement that you have, which is on your property, is always going to be pretty much usher. There's no real arrangement you can make to be matter something which is going on in your property. So, like you said, you're in the middle of a construction project. If it's yours, it's a problem. Now, if you're developing something way out there somewhere, maybe it's mutter because it's outside that no Jew can get there. It's not within a Jewish community. Or if you have an investment, there's a question about an investment property which no one really knows is yours. You've never been there. It's not like you were spotted going in there and checking on it. Yeah, you put money, you invested in a property. Could be that's also mutter if no one really knows it belongs to you. So anything like that is usher. Now taking that a step further, you were asking a question about. Therefore, let's say you're running a simcha, you're having an event on Shabbos. So you're asking, how do you have waiters come? So waiters is mutter because they're not doing any malacha. So technically, you could do it yourself. You just don't want it.
You're paying them specifically to work on Shabbos.
You're paying them to come on Shabbos, be available to you, but you're paying them to do something which you yourself could do technically. Right? Bringing in and out food is not a malacha. Okay. Now, serving food technically is not a malacha. The problem becomes if you start telling them to do malacha for you explicitly. So that's not a problem.
Take pictures of the event.
Oh, so what, hiring a photographer to come take pictures of events. So this is the whole thing because there was we had a case with what do they call it, a party planner, and all of a sudden she starts posting pictures of Kiddushin and all sorts of stuff. So I yeah, the photographer came, whatever. So it's Kabbalah, you know. It's a Kabbalah, and they're not doing malacha on a house, just taking pictures. Yeah, but they're doing it in your property. So a Kabbalah is still usher if it's in your property. Okay, can't have a Kabbalah come. And anyway, you told them specifically to come on Shabbos, so you can't have a Kabbalah come anyway specifically on Shabbos to do that. So
Even regardless of what you told them, you're benefiting from the.
So you have to know. So that's a good question. What happens if one of the waiters just takes out their phone and starts taking pictures? Hey, this looks really cool, or whatever. And then you want the picture afterwards. I'm not sure.
Rabbi Zilberstein posted on that there was a case of a kid who had cancer who did his bar mitzvah in the hospital on Shabbat, and later he died. And the parents wanted the security camera video from the hospital, and he posted.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He couldn't.
But that's a security camera. That's a bigger chiddush. Because what's the security camera? There's no malach on that.
Yeah.
There's a case that Zilberstein has. It's a Geshmak case. He has that after Shabbos, the Gabbai went over on a Shabbos. The Gabbai went over to a guy. They got an aliyah, and he says, "Thank you for your pledge, $1,000. Very generous. Can can you have a check
After Shabbos.
Yeah." So he says, "I didn't pledge $1,000. I didn't tell me. I said $100. He didn't say $100. He said $1,000. I heard it clearly." So he says, "It's not $100." He says, "Well, actually, for cases like this, we have a recorder right by the bima."
So we use it for.
So they bring the recorder, and the guy said $1,000. His taka said $1,000. But then the guy said, "You know what? Actually, I'm not even giving you 100. A shul that has a recorder, I'm not giving you a penny." So Zilberstein said, "As a mekach toy, his taka doesn't want to give to that shul at all. They don't have to give anything." So okay, so that's those types of cases where work like that is being done explicitly in your place, in your property, and it's marasayan, etc. Okay. The thing what we have to talk about is what we started introducing the topic is cases where you need employees to work for you over weekends. We just 3 or 4 basic examples, and we'll talk about it next time. One is, let's say you have a store, like we said, a retail store. So you have multiple levels. You have, maybe the manager of the store. You have the cashiers. So those people are all schir yoim, or some of them are schir yoim. So if some are schir yoim and some aren't, is there a structure you could create to make it mutter? You have a case where sometimes you're providing like a third-party service. Like there's a guy that, let's say, what he does is he services people's cars. So but he doesn't really service the cars. He's just, he's a broker, right? So he has a company, and people call him, and then he has technicians that go out and service the car at your home. That's the way it works. So they're closed on the weekends, but Yom Tif, he always had this shaila. The technicians want to go out. Can he set up the technician to go? What's his role over here? Or we've had cases with attorneys that have cases that have to have an attorney show up in court on a date that was set by the court, and it was Yom Tif, right? We've had that case. So these are all things we want to talk about. So based on the Yisodis that we learned, hopefully we'll get to some of these cases. I'll say next Sunday, Hashem, we're going to have, we're not going to have this share, we're having a different share, a Yarchikala. We always do an 2-day Yarchikala, Sunday, Monday. We're having Daniel Kleiman from Brooklyn come. Famous Raw, should be very, very interesting. He's talking about a Gavaldic topic of it in Din Lanafshe. Can you take the law into your own hands? In certain cases where you see there's a problem, like does everything have to go through Bezdin, or can you do it yourself and stuff like that? So next Sunday we're gonna join that.
Same time?
Same time. I'll send out the flyer on the chat, but that's the same concept, okay?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay. Shkoyach.